Good morning. I'm just waiting to see who all is going to jump on and join us before we get going this morning. So obviously our number one top objective is to do a really good review in preparation for your World War I quiz today. And then we start into the 1920s tomorrow. I went ahead and started throwing that stuff up there, and then I think your mom shot me a message this morning that she was picking up your new packet and stuff. So you should be good and ready to roll right into that tomorrow. So we have a few more weeks left before we transition to in-person for at least a couple of days anyway. All right, we got a few people. Okay, so good morning. I'm just trying to give everybody just a minute or two to make sure that I don't miss anybody and I don't have to go back and repeat anything as we review in preparation for your World War I quiz today. Just a heads up, and you might hear me say this a couple of times this week, just because I want to make sure that everybody knows. I don't remember if I stated it in my email. I'm pretty sure that I did, but I think I sent you guys something out on Friday. The biggest reason why I emailed everybody on Friday was to remind you of all the things that were due today in particular, and then what's coming up the rest of the week. But the other big thing is letting you know that my schedule is going to be changing after this week. After this week, I'm going to be teaching in person. Any freshmen and sophomores that come back. But, well, never mind. I know what I was going to say. My Zoom meetings won't change next week because I don't have any American 2s that are freshmen or sophomores. So if you are able to continue Zooming at our regular time and at 10:30, what am I saying? It will have to change a little bit. It might have to change to a Zoom at 10:30 and a Zoom at 11:30 because of classes, because I do have a first block that will be coming in person. So the Zoom times might change slightly, but if you're still able to get on in Zoom, then that's how we'll continue until you guys come back in person on the 19th. So we still got this week, next week, the week after, that second week of October is fall break, and everybody is online. So fall break is that Monday and Tuesday, and then everybody is virtual that Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So it'll be just 3 days that week that we'll do work. We'll Zoom that Wednesday, Thursday, and then Friday we'll continue our regular routine of you guys getting up, turning in what needs to be turned in, answering your bell ringer. And a lot of time on that Friday, I'll be using to prep for you guys to come in person that next week of the 19th. So we're almost there, and I'm beyond excited to actually see you guys in person. Okay, all right, it looks like it might be just us. If anybody else jumps on, I'll get them caught back up. Okay, all right, so World War I quiz, and you can't forget any of this because we are going to do a combo unit test once we finish 1920s. And all this stuff is going to be on your midterm that will be coming up as well. So keep all of that in mind as we continue. Don't hit the mental delete button yet, okay? All right, let's go through it. So a couple of reminders you need to know. Number one, who is president during World War I? It is Woodrow Wilson. So Woodrow Wilson is going to win the 1912 election. Remember, we stay out of World War I in the very beginning. Remember our reasons. We have a whole ocean that is separating us. We don't have any family members that are involved in this family feud that's happening over in Europe. But you do need to remember the domino that falls to begin World War I. Don't forget, it was the assassination, and you need to know the details for today's quiz. The detail is that it's the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the throne of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. And if you forget that detail, it might trip you up on a couple of questions. So make sure that you know it, okay? So that is what gets the ball rolling in Europe. And as soon as that happens, these secret alliances start popping up and everybody starts declaring war on everybody else. Okay, now, and I don't do this on purpose. I don't put trick questions on there on purpose. I'm trying to figure out what everybody actually knows versus what you're just guessing at, you know, who has really dived into the information and is learning it versus who's just skimming the surface. That's kind of what I'm doing with all this. And it helps me prep to make sure that you guys are ready for, you know, unit tests and midterms and things like that. And if you're not getting it, then obviously we need to go back and we need to prep and do some review, okay? So something else, and I don't want this to trip anybody up, we talked about it during our Zoom meetings last week, is that you have to know the two sides. Archduke gets assassinated, everybody starts picking a side. And you've got Central Powers. Central Powers are also known as, wink, wink, as the Triple Alliance. All right, Central Powers are also known as the Triple Alliance. Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Ottoman Empire, okay? Now, who's the other side? You know, who do we see as the good guys in this? We see the Triple Entente, also known as the Allies, Triple Entente, also known as the Allies, as the good guys. That's Great Britain, France, and Russia. Eventually, it will include the United States, but not yet, not in the beginning, okay? So in the beginning, everybody starts jumping in. Great Britain is the last of the Triple Entente or allies to jump in because, hint, hint, need to know this. Now Russia jumps in because Germany and Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, and Russia is a friend or a protectorate of Serbia. And of course, France jumps in because they're allied with Russia, and also because the Germans are heading to France. Great Britain doesn't jump in until the Germans actually start making their advance, and they actually go through Belgium to get to France. But Belgium is a neutral country. They're not even in this. Belgium is neutral. And once Germany shows total disregard, they don't care who made what decision. You know, as soon as Germany shows total disregard for Belgium being neutral, Great Britain jumps in. Again, they're kind of, we see the Allies as being the Superman coming in to save the day and go after the quote bad guys, you know. But bad guys is kind of in the eye of the beholder, you know. So anyway, okay, so let's get back on track, all right. Woodrow Wilson is president. Woodrow Wilson is going to create what we know as the 14 points, also known as a peace plan. He creates this peace plan because, again, that's what he's trying to push, is world peace. He doesn't care who wins and who loses. He don't care who's on whose side. He just wants, excuse me, to create world peace. Now, unfortunately, most of his 14-point plan is completely ignored. That's the worst part about it, is that most people don't even pay attention to what he's got to say with his 14-point peace plan. If we had, you know what, things would have gone a lot differently. And here's the worst part about it is the possibility that World War II might not have even happened. Yes, yes. Could his peace plan have actually prevented a world war? There's a huge possibility. And we'll talk why a little bit more here in just a second. It has to do with what's in the treaty, okay? All right, so let's get back to it. Now, here at home, we're switching everything over to wartime production. Think about all that vocab, all those vocab words that you had to define. Think about all those vocab, all right? We had the War Industry Board that is going to switch everybody over to wartime production. We're not making lipstick, we're making bullets. We're not making clothes, we're making uniforms. We're not making wagons, we're making tanks, whatever. You get what I'm saying, all right? Everything switches over to wartime production. And we don't have time for people to be striking and slowing down the production. So we have the National War Labor Board, which pretty much outlaws and closes down anybody that tries to strike during World War I. All right, we ain't got time for that. We got to produce this stuff and get it overseas for our soldiers eventually whenever we jump in. Because Woodrow Wilson will run for a second term in office. When he runs for re-election in 1916, he actually runs on the campaign of, he kept us out of war. Well, he keeps that promise for only a few more months before we got the sinking of the Lusitania that kills Americans. And we also have the Zimmerman Note, to where Germany is telling Mexico, if they pick a fight with us and they try and keep us occupied over here, they're going to give them land back. What land do they promise? Quiz question. They promised to give back Texas, New Mexico, and Arizona. And if you remember during American I, you know that's land that they lost during the Mexican-American War. So we have the Lusitania and we have the Zimmerman telegram that push us into making the decision to go to war. And again, we are going to side on the side of the Allies, or the Triple Entente. All right. Now, 1917 is another pivotal moment in time. Why? Because Russia pulls out of the war. Russia has the Russian Revolution. They completely come out of the war. That does change because we had a war on two fronts, Eastern Front and Western Front. We are using trench warfare during this time period, constant bombing. What about new technology? You got questions today on this new technology. You got airplanes, which in the beginning, what?
How much longer are you gonna be?
5 minutes.
Oh,
Yeah. Do you need me?
nah, not for anything serious. I'll come back in 5 minutes.
Okay. All right. So a couple of things really quick. We got new technology. We are using trench warfare this go around. We've got machine guns. We've got poisonous gas and gas mask. We, again, are using airplanes. And here's another thing about airplanes. Airplanes in the beginning are going to be used for observation purposes, okay? And then we're going to get the brilliant idea. Let's smack a machine gun on top of this airplane, and now it's a weapon. So what do we call airplanes that are fighting each other in the sky? We call it dogfights. We call it, watching dogfights in the sky when airplanes are flying and attacking each other, okay? What about women? What about women? All right, well, here at home, women and minorities are taking over the jobs that were left behind, but women are allowed to join and assist the armed forces as nurses and doing clerical work, all right, typing up notes, messages, telegrams, all right? So women are allowed to help in those two capacities, okay? All right, now, let's go back to some more vocab, all right? War Industry Board, switching our factories over to wartime production. National Labor Relations Board is, again, preventing any kind of strikes that are happening. The Committee on Public Information is making sure that positive propaganda is out there, encouraging people to join the war effort, build a victory garden outside their home, notifying everybody of daylight savings time. All right, we need to conserve fuel. Right now we are rationing, limiting supplies, and conserving. Whatever you don't eat, whatever you don't use, we can send over to our soldiers. And we're going to put in daylight savings time because that also helps with fuel. All right, because our farmers can get going earlier in the day. We don't have to burn as much fuel working late at night and having to again have electricity or other forms of fuel to have light continue to work. So daylight savings time comes thanks to World War I. Hold on, there was another one. Oh yeah, just again a review question. We know that the first domino to fall is the assassination of the Archduke, heir to the throne of the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. That is so pivotal, so important to remember. Okay, now let's get into the other pieces of the puzzle. Okay, Treaty of Versailles. All right, we're fast forward through the end. Treaty of Versailles. getting us to the end of World War I. We got the big four, all right? We got Great Britain, France, Italy, and the US. I know we don't talk much about Italy, but they were there and they kind of did a little hopping back and forth. They did. Because there for a while we thought they were in talks and going to be siding with the Central Powers, but they ended up being on the Allies side. I think a lot of it has to do with watching to see who the winner is going to be. Okay. But anyway, so Russia is not invited to this party because they pulled out in 1917. So that's one thing that they'll hold against us. But Treaty of Versailles, why is this such a big deal? The blame is going to be forced upon Germany. They have to acknowledge blame for the war. They're going to have to disarm themselves, their military. Again, all these things are really embarrassing. They have to pay war reparations. They're broke as a joke after financing a major world war. They don't have the money, but they're forced to pay war reparations, which is just paying property damages to Great Britain and France and Russia. Let's see, what else? There was something else that I saw, and now I don't remember what it was. Oh, let's just make sure that you have a few more vocab and you're good to go on that. All right, Sussex Pledge, very important, okay? We got U-boats, we got German submarines that are watching and patrolling the waters of the North Sea and the Atlantic Ocean, all right? After some conflicts happen, the sinking of a lot of merchant ships, the Germans come out with the Sussex Pledge, which pretty much says that we will give a warning before firing, all right? Trying to give you a shot, right? So we will issue a warning before we fire, all right? Sussex Pledge. But again, that happens with the Lusitania. They issue a warning. The Lusitania does not turn around. They fire. They sink the ship. It goes down 1915. Civilians on board that pass away. It's a little bit of a mess, all right? And again, it is one of the things that pushed the U.S. into war. Let's see, what was the other one? Propaganda. Make sure that you know what propaganda is, all right? It is emotionally opinion-based posters and advertisements, you know? It's showing women and children floating dead in the ocean after sinking of the Lusitania. You know, it's pulling at your heartstrings. It wants you to do something about it. Join the war, buy a Liberty Bond. And remember, Liberty Bonds are ways for the government to finance the war, right? They're borrowing our money to finance the war, and what do we get out of it? We get interest, right? We're going to make money on our money after the war is over, and we cash them back in. Let's see. Another vocab word, you've got contraband, all right? Contraband, you should know. You should hear this enough in the news and everything else. Contraband is just illegal stuff, something you're not supposed to have, all right? And contraband in terms of what's happening during World War I is, you know, given certain supplies and ammunition and weapons to Germany or any of the Central Powers, right? That's contraband. You know, we're not supposed to be communicating with them or giving them anything. Let's see. Well, there was Alien and Sedition Act. Espionage. Espionage is spying, all right? So obviously we're not going to allow spying, especially during a time of war. Sedition Act, you can't speak out. You know, it's like the little monkeys. See no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil. You know all the things, right? So Sedition Act means that you can't speak out against the government during a time of war. So you are having some of your freedoms limited during a time of war. And then another thing we talked about to kind of round us out is what happens at the end of the war and after the war, the whole Red Scare and the scare of communism. So we know that Mitchell Palmer goes on what he calls his Palmer raids, and the Red Scare is just talking about fear of communism. So he's going after and having these Palmer raids that are, people might be deported because of it, especially if you're an illegal alien. Anybody that is, you know, spreading communist ideas, trying to start up a communist party, all the things. But again, the Sedition Act is limiting what you can say, again, if you're protesting against the U.S. and our involvement in World War I. So that's a lot. But as always, I've got your quiz beside of me, and I'm rolling through it to make sure that I don't forget, especially any of the key components. And I wanted to keep today pretty short and sweet because I know that you've got a lot to do. Bell ringer, taking your quiz and knocking that out, which should be pretty fast, shouldn't take you long, and then making sure that you get those other pieces. If you're in honors, turn in an honors project, and then everybody has the World War I project due today. So it's a lot, and I'm sorry. I'll do better next time to watch my calendar on due dates. All right, what we got? Does anybody want me to go over something else again, or questions about something? Ashlyn, anything this morning?
I think I'm good. I think I got it all.
Okay, I didn't mean to go through it so fast and furious, but I did want to kind of make sure I hit the highlights. And like I said, you can't say I didn't try to help if I'm actually using your quiz as guiding questions. So that should look familiar. Justin, what about you? Something else you want me to go over or questions?
I do not have any questions.
Okay, all right, well, perfect. Well, like I said, you guys should be good, especially if you jump right into that quiz now that we've done the review, and you guys knock it out. And you will see a lot of these as repeat questions when we do the combo test in another week. All right, guys, happy Monday. Get today over with, and yeah, it'll be a lot easier the rest of the week. So that's the good news. All right, y'all have a good one. See y'all later.